So I'm going to open the file. I've opened a program. I'm going to click here to open a directory. Going to find the file. Here are the data. Clicked on the directory and selected, and there I have my data. Now the data are mixed up in the bottom here. I have selected the correct parameter here and here, but they look a bit messy. So why are they looking like that? Well, it's very simple. They're actually log data and they're not being plotted out as log. So if I click on log here, I don't actually want the forward scatter and side scatter to be log, nor the width or time. So once I do that, I say apply, and it looks better, but they're still not great. So I'm going to normalize and crop outliers. And once I do that, you can see they look quite nice. And if I go up there, I have my data. The next thing I need to do is identify the assay. So I'm going to bring the protocol in. So I'm going to go to options. I'm going to go to BioLegend, and I'm going to open up the correct protocol, which happens to be 74027. And when I open that, you'll see immediately it opens up that protocol. Now, how do I know what those are? Well, I went to BioLegend's website and I looked up their assay. This is the assay for CD8NK, 13-plex. And then I went down to here and I simply created this protocol and saved it under BioLegend with the product number, and that's what I opened, and that's what's here. So now that I know what the assay is, I'm going to identify the bead map. To know what the bead map looks like, I have to relate these analytes and these beads to here. Now I know that in the BioLegend kits, the top beads are the B beads and the bottom beads are the A beads. And again, if I open up my map here, you see that I've got them listed here and here, and I've got the B beads here and the A beads here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to automatically gate them. Well, let's say semi-automatically, because I'm going to now click on semi-auto, and if I now move this cursor, you'll see that I can change the size, and the software automatically calculates the areas of the beads. And what I need is 7 beads across the top and 6 across the bottom. And so there I have it. Once I've got that, I say click gates, and it drops the gates in. Now, it didn't do a brilliant job on here, and it's not surprising because these bead maps aren't great, but it's very easy for me to fix. I know that that's actually the first B bead, so I just grab it and drag it to there. And then this is the second B bead, so I drag B3. This is B4, it's right, B5, B6, B7, and B9. This is the first A bead, so I find the first A bead and drag it to that, and then the second A bead to that, then A6, A7, and A10's at the end. This has to be A8, and I know it is, so I'm going to drag it to there. So now I have my beads in the correct place. Now I have my assay here, so I've defined it. I have my bead populations, I've defined them. Now I need to know what's in the plate. The plate map here, I have no idea what's in it. So this is the plate map, and I already created a plate map, so I'm just going to load it, and the plate map is this one here. I just created it before, and it's called Cell Info, and it had the standards on columns 1 and 2, and then the samples were in here, and these numbers were simply the numbers that I saw were on the samples, and I've got the dilution factor here and the number of dilutions. So once I have this plate map, I'm going to associate it with the data, and all I need to do that is hit apply. And the moment I hit apply, the entire analysis of the plate will be done. And you see now my standard curves are here. Here are my standard curves, and here are my resultant data. So to all intents and purposes, I've now completed the analysis of this data set. So now that I've got my basic analysis done, I can maybe look at the data very quickly by just, for example, looking at my standard curve here, and you can see when I drag that I've got the data here. Maybe I've got samples across here that I'm interested in looking at, or across here, maybe just these 3, or maybe these 4. So it doesn't really matter what I click on. I can see the data here for each of those points. Now there's several other things that I can do. Of course, I can zoom in on any window or zoom out. It's the zoom in and zoom out features are very, very basic. If I click here, I can switch the axes from one to the other, and I can zoom in onto my populations that I'm interested in here. Down here, I can look at any of these individually, and I can output the data, and this is quite interesting. So the data output is here. So there are a few other things you can do. For example, you can look at each of the different analytes, and over on this side you can see a color scheme which identifies the percentage or number of cells that are highlighted. So for example, if I take porphyrin and I go over here, you'll see this number just below here where the cursor is now. As I move around, it will tell you the number of porphyrin beads per well, and all of these data are outputted anyway. But here I can look at this one and see there's 397 beads out of 6,000 are afroporphyrin. If I go to granzyme and I go here, it's 321. And I can obviously change the gates of these if I want to, just by changing the gate, by moving it around like that, or moving one particular point, or changing its size. What else can we do? Well, if you want to, you can convert this to a histogram, and then you can run through each of these. I don't know really why you'd want to do this, but it'll show you where the intensity level is of each of those beads. There are other features here, actually a lot of features. One of them is that you can disable certain wells. Now, when I looked at these standard curves, I thought they might not be exactly the way they should be. And I decided that if I killed off the C5 standard by right-clicking on that, I improved the standard curve for several of those points, and that's just an example. And you see down here they've been removed, and they'll be completely removed from the analysis. There's a feature where you can look at any particular well by clicking Show Selected Well, and then if you click on one well, you'll only see over here the beads from that well. I can select any well here, and since most of the beads have the same number of, since most of the wells have the same number of beads, it doesn't make much difference. But for example, if I wanted to look at this standard curve set of beads, then I can do that, or this, or this. You also have the option of copying the graphs. For example, if you click copy there and you bring up something like Paint or PowerPoint or Word, you can drop that into there, and the same thing with any of the graphs on the screen.